The chamber hummed with quiet arrogance. Delegates from over 100 species sat in crescent rows, each one believing they understood the nature of conflict, of war, of dominion. The Galactic Council, supreme authority of interstellar law, had gathered not to apologize, but to question. The subject? Humanity. A relatively young species that had recently detonated onto the galactic stage like a fusion core going critical. No one had expected their reaction. Certainly not the Council. The records showed that a member race, Zorath Dominion, had launched an unsanctioned strike on several human colonies located on the edge of the Outer Arm. According to the Dominion's representatives, it was a precautionary cleansing to remove primitive infestation. The Council had reviewed the act and, after brief deliberation, decided the Dominion's aggression had been excessive, but not without precedent. In the long history of the Council, dozens of emerging species had been pre-managed this way. Most either surrendered or went extinct. But humans did either. Instead of submitting petitions or requests for dialogue, Earth responded with an intensity the Council found distasteful. Not because of the destruction itself, but because of the efficiency. Within 20 days, 3 Dominion fleets were eradicated. Their outposts dark. Their data cores purged. Entire battle groups reduced to wreckage. No demands. No warnings. Just retaliation. And so the Council summoned a human. Not a diplomat. A general. To answer for the disproportionate response. The doors opened, and he entered. General Elias Merrick. Simple gray uniform. No ornaments. No weapons. Just the calm walk of a man who had seen fire and refused to be consumed by it. The Council expected desperation. Instead, they got silence. Cold. Still. General. The presiding arbiter spoke, his voice smooth and mildly condescending. You are here to explain your species' unauthorized counteroffensive against a Council-recognized entity. You destroyed military assets of no direct involvement to the original strike. This response cannot be. You attacked our home, Merrick said. It wasn't a shout. It wasn't even loud. But every delegate froze. Not because of the words. Because of the weight behind them. I was told you required context, he continued, stepping forward. So I'll give it to you. On May 3rd, Earth Standard Time, an unprovoked strike by Dominion forces annihilated 3 human colonies, Farside, Linares Theta, and Hellion Ridge. Total civilian population, 91,207. Total survivors, 416. Most of them children. All under the age of 9. The chamber shifted uncomfortably. You call our response excessive, he went on. I call your silence complicit. You watched it happen. You let it happen. And when we struck back, then you found your voice. One of the insectoid delegates clicked a challenge. Your retaliation destroyed strategic installations not directly linked to the offensive. They fueled it, Merrick replied instantly. They resupplied the Dominion. They monitored our colonies. They built the drives that carried the bombs. Another delegate protested. Intent to supply is not the same as intent to annihilate. Merrick didn't even blink. Then let me be clear. Humanity doesn't debate the semantics of genocide. We bury our dead, and we remember the names of those who smiled while they died. Silence again. He reached into his uniform and placed a small device on the central podium. Without a word, he activated it. Holograms burst to life. Not war footage. Not battles. Homes. Schools. Domes on alien soil, human architecture, modest, practical, and beautiful in its simplicity. Then fire. Then screams. Then silence. Footage cut to a charred hallway where tiny handprints were burned into the floor beside blackened toys. One scene. 1 second. But no one in the chamber moved. I've served in 12 theaters, Merrick said quietly. I've seen what war does. But this wasn't war. This was extermination wrapped in protocol. The arbiter opened his mouth, but no words came. You thought we would respond with fear, Merrick said. You thought we'd come crawling, asking for mercy. Instead, we came prepared. Not for war. For justice. Not to threaten. To ensure you never forget. A deep voice near the back scoffed. You humans overreact. Merrick's expression didn't change. Do you know why our species survived itself? Why we crawled from our own ashes more than once? Because we learned that survival isn't about submission. It's about remembrance. About refusing to forget who struck first. The delegates were silent now. Not one dared interrupt. You call yourselves enlightened. Civilized. You sat idle while children burned. And now you sit in judgment of the ones who refuse to let that stand. He paused, his eyes locked forward. Understand this. We are not here to argue. We are not here to ask. We came because we wanted you to see us. To look us in the eye. And to understand that humanity doesn't forget. And we never forgive an unprovoked wound to our home. He stepped back. The footage still flickering behind him. No theatrics. No dramatics. Just a statement of fact. You attacked our home. Now you get to live with what that means. The silence following General Merrick's statement wasn't ordinary. It wasn't the pause of diplomacy or tension. It was suffocating, the kind of stillness that precedes irreversible understanding. The delegates, for all their centuries of experience, suddenly felt like children in a room where the adult had finally lost patience. General Merrick didn't raise his voice. He didn't need to. His words were already carved into the air. You didn't attack a military target, he said. You targeted life. Scientists. Miners. Engineers. Families. He stepped forward, and with surgical precision, outlined the events. He named the settlements one by one, detailing their civilian nature. He listed the names of children, dozens of them, spoken with unshakable clarity. Not dramatized. Just facts. Brutal, raw, undeniable. We had no warning. No declaration. No negotiation. You erased them because they were inconvenient. Because we hadn't yet paid your council its tribute. You didn't see people, you saw clutter. He stared at the Zorath ambassador without blinking. What you did wasn't a strike. It was a message. You wanted to remind us who held the leash in this galaxy. You assumed we were still on our knees, learning to speak. You were wrong. A Kelvani delegate, covered in ceremonial plating, shifted uncomfortably. Retaliation on that scale violates multiple. The laws you wrote, Merrick interrupted coldly. And only enforce when convenient. You quote codes while our dead are still smoldering. He tapped the device again. More footage. No gunfire. Just aftermath. Relief workers pulling corpses from rubble. Engineers weeping over destroyed archives. Silence broken only by the sound of wind through ruined infrastructure. No propaganda. Just consequences. Your rules didn't protect our people. They didn't slow the bombardment. They didn't shield the domes when the airlocks failed. So don't preach to us about restraint. The images disappeared. Merrick let the silence return before speaking again. Some of you still believe we came here for diplomacy. That we want acceptance, validation, or pity. We don't. He folded his arms. What we want is for you to understand what you awakened. He didn't pace or gesture. His stillness was more unnerving than rage. It wasn't theater. It was control. You looked at humanity and saw disunity. You saw political divisions, cultural noise, competition. You assumed those traits made us vulnerable. What you never understood is that they made us stronger. He held the council in his gaze. When we grieve, we unify. When we're wounded, we adapt. And when we're hunted, we become something you're not equipped to comprehend. A murmur rippled through a few delegates, barely audible. Merrick continued unfazed. You saw us as fractured. You didn't realize we built across fracture lines. We don't need one flag to stand together. We just need a reason. You gave us one. He paused, letting that reality settle. You didn't just wake a war machine. You forged consensus. For the first time in our history, we spoke with one voice. Not because we sought conquest, but because we refuse extinction. A representative from the Tovari Commonwealth tried to interject. But you retaliated without engaging the council. That breaks. The chain of command was broken when you allowed the Dominion to strike without punishment. Merrick cut in. You call us reckless, but we calculated every move. We struck military installations, not cities. We gave evacuation warnings. Did your allies? No answer came. Merrick's voice dropped slightly. You didn't just kill our people. You dismantled the illusion that the council was just. And now that we've acted, you're not horrified by the deaths. You're horrified that we were capable of dealing them. A few eyes lowered. You call us dangerous. You're correct. We are. But we weren't born that way. You trained us. You tested limits. You struck first. He scanned the room. No one met his eyes. You don't fear our weapons. You fear our memory. Because we remember everything. Every innocent name. Every scream recorded. Every moment your fleets hovered above our skies. He stepped back slightly. Understand this. Our retaliation wasn't vengeance. It was a demonstration. We wanted to show you that pain has a cost. That humanity does not vanish quietly. That we speak loudest when buried. He closed his eyes for a moment, as if remembering something personal, then reopened them with renewed intensity. You attacked our home. You justified it with protocol, with indifference, with bureaucratic cruelty. Now you'll witness what happens when a species builds its rage with purpose. He stepped away from the podium, leaving behind not a plea, not a threat, but something more enduring, a truth none of them would be able to unhear. The Galactic Council had never feared a primitive species before. Their archives were filled with the ashes of civilizations that resisted integration. Some had fought. Others surrendered. All were eventually silenced. Humanity was expected to follow that pattern. Early scans suggested a race emotionally volatile, politically fragmented, and technologically behind. An ideal candidate for soft assimilation or, failing that, a preemptive purge. The Dominion chose the latter. The Council didn't stop them, not because they agreed, but because they didn't care. Before the first shot was fired, internal memos dismissed humanity as short-lived opportunists too consumed with internal squabbles to mount real resistance. A Terran specialist had warned otherwise. Her reports spoke of dormant unity, cultural resilience, and unpredictable adaptability. She was ignored. One counselor even joked, "Let them scream into the stars. Sound doesn't travel in vacuum." Then came the silence. After the first Dominion fleet vanished, confusion reigned. No distress calls. No black box transmissions. Just absence. Initial theories blamed system anomalies, until satellite debris drifted into neutral space, wreckage that bore unmistakable Terran burn patterns. The Council called for answers. The Dominion lied, claiming a malfunction. But the Second Fleet disappeared too. This time, a message remained. 6 words, embedded in deep-frequency pulses. *You burned our sky. We remember. *. Panic took hold behind closed doors. The Council, for all its bravado, had never dealt with a species that struck not for territory or control, but consequence. Humanity wasn't expanding, they were erasing threats. Quietly. Precisely. They didn't attack border planets first. They targeted refueling stations, deep space hubs, mining routes. Critical arteries of movement. When Zortha's Fourth Fleet mobilized, its ships never made it to hyperspace. Sabotaged. Each one detonated before light-speed ignition. What unnerved the Council most wasn't the destruction, it was the knowledge. Humanity knew where to hit. How to bypass shields. Which nodes to shut down. Their intelligence was surgical. As if they'd been studying the Council long before first contact. Attempts to retaliate were met with silence. Terran fleets never clashed in open battle. They struck at night, in voids beyond star mapping ranges. Their craft operated on frequencies no Council race had encountered. Some ships appeared to be unmanned, AI-controlled specters with no life signatures. Others broadcast decoy codes, tricking entire fleets into firing on each other. The Council's protocols were weaponized against them. Some races demanded escalation. Nuclear sweeps. Planetary culls. But even those threats were blunted. Council servers failed. Weapons platforms rebooted mid-deployment. Defensive grids collapsed without warning. It wasn't brute force, it was infection. Terran code had infiltrated their systems, rewriting access, turning smart weapons blind. No warning. No declaration. Just silence, then failure. The Council's arrogance began to fracture. Accusations flew between allied species. How had humans gained access to secure data? How did they learn to predict fleet movements, identify vulnerable links? Internal investigations revealed that Terran operatives had been among them for years: engineers, translators, cultural liaisons, observers. Harmless. Until they weren't. One particular agent had embedded in a Council logistics firm, quietly mapping trade routes, communication protocols, fleet fuel cycles. By the time she vanished, human strike teams already had blueprints for 27 supply stations. Even more disturbing was the psychological aspect. Human broadcasts intercepted by Council frequencies weren't threats. They were memories, short, looping messages from survivors of the burned colonies. Audio logs of children asking where their parents went. Engineers whispering final coordinates. Each message deliberately placed to reach specific officers. The effect was devastating. Council leadership ordered silence protocols, banning all intercepted human transmissions. Some officers disobeyed, playing them in secret. Suicides followed. Morale collapsed. One admiral deserted mid-campaign, his ship vanishing into uncharted space. The Council finally understood they hadn't provoked a war. They had triggered something else. Something deeper. The strength of the human response wasn't in their weaponry. It was in their memory. They didn't fight to conquer. They fought to remind. Every strike they made wasn't for advantage, it was for witnessing. A lesson delivered without negotiation. The Council had assumed technological superiority equaled control. They believed codes and doctrines protected them. But humanity didn't follow their logic. They followed grief. Precision born from pain. Cold, clear purpose rooted in names spoken over graves. It wasn't just a military response. It was cultural. Civilizational. A species choosing to become a storm, because peace had been denied. And now, with each passing day, more systems went dark. More fleets failed to report. Entire sectors pulsed with Terran interference, subtle, invasive, deliberate. By the time the Council convened to question General Merrick, they already knew the truth. They had misjudged. Miscalculated. Misread what humans were capable of when unity wasn't chosen, but forged in fire. By the time the Fourth Sector lost contact, the Council stopped issuing public statements. Denial had collapsed. The enemy they dismissed as emotional primitives now operated with unnerving precision. Human retaliation wasn't random, it followed a sequence. Infrastructure. Supply. Command. Collapse. Then silence. Their strikes weren't aimed at population centers. They didn't crave destruction, they engineered isolation. Entire systems left powerless, unable to call for help. No warning. No aftermath footage. Only quiet stars above empty relays. They began calling them shadows. Human fleets didn't announce their presence. No energy spikes, no warp signatures. Council patrols vanished mid-route, their last transmissions garbled. Ships drifted into system perimeters only to find derelict outposts, doors melted shut, reactors drained. The few survivors told the same story, machines turning against them, supply lines hacked, weapons that refused to fire. Every attempt to fight back had already been predicted. The Council sent elite fleets reinforced with advanced jammers, psychic shields, cloaked escorts. None returned. Later, fragments were found drifting through asteroid belts, each one etched with coordinates. Investigators arrived at those coordinates to find Council storage facilities emptied, their servers stripped. No signs of conflict. Just precision theft and silent exits. Humanity didn't take trophies. They didn't broadcast victories. They simply erased presence. More disturbing was the psychological warfare. Every intercepted message from Earth's military wasn't coded with bravado or warnings, it was personal. Names of the fallen read aloud, then silence. No curses. No threats. Just names. A quiet indictment played across the galaxy. Then came the ash calms. Hijacked Council frequencies began broadcasting whispers, distorted voices of the victims from the destroyed colonies. Some real. Some reconstructed from last logs. They played on loop, bleeding into military comms, civilian signals, even emergency channels. Entire bases went dark just to escape the sound. This wasn't combat. It was memory turned weapon. Diplomatic vessels tried reaching out. Humans never responded. They didn't negotiate. They dismantled. Not out of hatred, but out of purpose. Humanity's strategy wasn't rooted in dominance. It was denial. Denial of movement, of communication, of resource flow. Council war engines weren't destroyed. They were made irrelevant. Blocked, drained, bypassed. Dozens of planetary governors resigned, unable to maintain order without supply or authority. Civilian unrest spread. Not from human propaganda, but from fear of absence. The invisible force outside their system. Waiting. One outer rim station intercepted an unauthorized ping. It contained no language. Just a symbol, 3 concentric rings around a dark core. Human designation for Hellion Ridge. One of the lost colonies. When translated, the pulse read, "We are the echo of your silence." Fear replaced policy. Council members fled to core worlds, abandoning border systems. Whole fleets recalled not to fight, but to protect bureaucrats. Core defense protocols activated for the first time in centuries. Even then, human forces didn't invade. They didn't want territory. They wanted clarity. Every strike was followed by proof, data drops showing the link between Council funding and the Dominion's initial purge. Records they had tried to bury. Earth retrieved and delivered them unasked. Truth became its own weapon. Council credibility collapsed. Neutral races began breaking alliances. Some offered assistance to Earth, not out of alliance, but atonement. They feared being next, not for what they'd done, but for what they hadn't stopped. A station orbiting the 5th moon of Euro Prime was found intact, abandoned, its crew missing. On its central console were 7 words: "This is what watching cost you." They began to understand. Humanity had redefined warfare. This wasn't about firepower. It was about message. Every act of destruction held meaning. Every silence, an accusation. Not a single human planet had been colonized in this time. Not one banner raised on captured soil. They weren't interested in conquest. Their warpath had one direction, toward those responsible. When Council communications finally stabilized, Earth remained silent. Not out of secrecy. Out of judgment. There was nothing left to say. Only consequences unfolding. Their algorithms had failed. Their assumptions had collapsed. Their fleets were irrelevant. And at the center of it, humanity remained focused, relentless, calculating. Not mad with vengeance, but cold with resolve. They hadn't started a war. They were finishing a message. And every system they passed through, every ship they dismantled, every voice they silenced, became part of that message. We are not here to conquer. We are here to remember. The chamber no longer carried the confidence it once held. Delegates sat in silence, not from protocol, but dread. The presence of General Merrick wasn't what unnerved them. It was the knowledge that he represented a species that had already decided. The tribunal they had convened wasn't a trial, it was a final record. No one interrupted this time. The air carried the weight of failure, centuries of arrogance reduced to stillness. General Merrick stood, gaze unwavering. There is no offer, he said flatly. No demands. You've already chosen the outcome. We're only here to mark it. The counselors who once ruled sectors now avoided eye contact. Their power meant nothing. Their fleets were scattered. Their influence hollow. He reminded them of that without raising his voice. You sat silent when the fires began, he continued. Now you ask for terms? You think we're here for revenge. We're not. We came so you could hear the truth while you still had ears to listen. He looked directly at the Zorath Anva. You believed extermination was policy. That our dead would be forgotten beneath bureaucracy. That you could erase without consequence. But humans remember everything. Every scream. Every name. Every breath stolen without cause. A few delegates flinched as if expecting him to strike. He didn't. We didn't respond to provoke war, he said. We responded to end precedent. To ensure no one watching would ever mistake silence for weakness again. A transmission alert pinged silently in the chamber. No one touched it. They knew what it meant. Another outpost lost. Another system fallen dark. Not one missile launched. Just disruption, paralysis, disappearance. Earth didn't seek battles, they dismantled foundations. Now the structure was crumbling. You talk of civilization, Merrick said. You measured it in compliance. Submission. Control. But true civilization protects its people. Defends them. Honors them. He placed a small data slate on the central table. This contains the names of every life lost in the colony strikes. All 91,000. Full records. Audio logs. Medical data. Family archives. We compiled it from fragments, ash static. We spent more time restoring those memories than planning counterattacks. He let that settle. Because they mattered. Everyone. To us. Another counselor finally spoke, voice barely audible. What do you want from us? Merrick didn't answer immediately. Then, we want you to understand. Not forgiveness. Not surrender. Understanding. You built this system on fear. On obedience. You ignored suffering unless it threatened your influence. You trained entire species to look away. And you believed humans would be no different. He stepped forward. You were wrong. One of the elder races whispered something in their native tongue. A phrase roughly translating to they learned too quickly. Merrick caught it. No, he said. We always knew. We just hoped we wouldn't need to show it. He tapped the slate again. A new set of files loaded, images of the Council's hidden funding of Dominion forces. Secure comms. Payments. Orders. Proof of coordination. It left no room for debate. The strike wasn't rogue. It wasn't unauthorized. It was approved in shadows. You thought no one would trace it. He held their gaze. You didn't expect us to survive. The air turned heavier. You called our response disproportionate. I call it overdue. And the reason we're still standing here, talking, is because the world we came from believes in one final thing. He paused, then said the words slowly. Warning. Not threat. Not punishment. Warning. This is what happens when the innocent are silenced without consequence. This is what follows when justice is mocked by systems built to protect the powerful. His tone remained level. We don't need conquest. We don't seek empire. But if you ever allow another strike like that again, if another colony burns because of your politics, there won't be records. There won't be trials. There will be extinction. A long silence followed. No response. No challenge. Because they believed him. He leaned closer, his final words sharper than any weapon. Make your declarations. Rewrite your codes. Hold your votes. But remember this, humans never needed your approval. We only needed a reason. He turned, slate still on the table. They watched him go. No applause. No anthem. Only understanding.